The Wilson estate stretched across 12 pristine acres, a monument to wealth that Edward Wilson had amassed through decades of ruthless business acumen. At the center of the sprawling mansion lived Nathaniel, Edward's 19-year-old son. Confined to a wheelchair since birth due to a rare degenerative condition affecting his spine, Nathaniel's room resembled a small apartment, equipped with every luxury and medical convenience money could buy. Smart home technology responded to his voice, and a team of private nurses rotated shifts to ensure his comfort. Yet for all its opulence, the room felt like a museum exhibit, perfect, untouched, and isolated from the world outside. "Good morning, Mr. Nathaniel," said Thomas, the head nurse, rolling in a breakfast tray. "Your father asked me to remind you about the specialist visiting from Switzerland next week." Nathaniel nodded without enthusiasm. Another doctor to tell me what the previous 20 couldn't. The door opened again, and Olivia Bennett Wilson entered. At 35, she had been Edward's wife for barely 8 months, yet she carried herself with quiet confidence.
Wow.
The staff had initially viewed her with suspicion, the classic trophy wife stereotype. But Olivia had surprised everyone with her genuine interest in Nathaniel's welfare. "I brought you something," she said, placing a book on his lap. "It's about a paralyzed mountain climber who designed his own equipment and scaled Everest." Frowned. "Mrs. Wilson, Mr. Edward, prefers educational materials from the approved list." "Well, I think inspiration is educational too," Olivia replied with a smile that brooked no argument. After Thomas left, Nathaniel examined the book. "Dad will hate this. Doesn't like stories about false hope, as he calls it." Olivia pulled up a chair. "What do you call it?" "I don't know. I've never really thought about it." Nathaniel's fingers traced the cover image of a man on a mountainside. "Dad's protected me since Mom died. He means well." "Protection can sometimes become a cage, even a golden one," Olivia said gently. "Father loves you fiercely, but love can express itself in different ways." Later that afternoon, Edward returned from his office, impeccably dressed as always. At 53, his commanding presence filled any room he entered. "How was physical therapy?" he asked Nathaniel, kissing the top of his head. "The same doctor. Patterson says my upper body strength is improving." Edward nodded approvingly. "Excellent. That's what matters. Working with what we have, not chasing what we don't." Olivia entered with tea, catching the end of their conversation. Something flickered in her eyes, disagreement carefully concealed. "Actually," she ventured, "I was reading about new developments in neuroplasticity, and not now." Olivia Edward cut in smoothly. "We've been through every promising treatment. I have a team of experts who update me on any legitimate developments." That night, after Edward had fallen asleep, Olivia sat in the library scrolling through research papers on her tablet. A notification appeared in email confirming shipment of a specialized walking aid from Japan. She glanced toward the master bedroom where Edward slept, then quietly closed the tablet. Tomorrow would bring another day of careful planning. Another step in her mission to show both father and son that protection without possibility wasn't protection at all. Asterisk for 3 weeks, Olivia meticulously prepared for what she privately called Operation First Steps. The specialized walking aid had arrived from Japan, hidden in the guest house where Edward rarely ventured. It was an exoskeleton. Frame, lightweight yet sturdy, designed specifically for individuals with Nathaniel's condition. "Mrs. Wilson, may I speak frankly?" James, the estate manager, approached her one morning in the garden. "Of course, James," Olivia replied, closing her notebook where she'd been sketching a practice route among the garden paths. "The staff has noticed your ... research activities. While we admire your dedication to Nathaniel, Mr. Wilson has very specific protocols regarding his son's care." Olivia met his gaze steadily. "Does everyone agree those protocols are what Nathaniel needs most?" James hesitated. "It's not our place to, 20 years ago." "Doctors told Edward that Nathaniel would never speak or feed himself," she interrupted gently. "He proved them wrong through intensive therapy that Edward insisted upon. What if we're at another such threshold?" In Nathaniel's room, Olivia began with small exercises, building trust and strength without raising suspicion. She brought him books about neuroplasticity, and showed him videos of people with similar conditions who had made unexpected progress. "This is all theoretical for me," Nathaniel said one afternoon, his voice tinged with both hope and doubt. "I've never stood on my own, not once in my life." "Fear is natural," Olivia responded. "But so is curiosity." "Which one do you want guiding your life?" Nathaniel's physical therapist, Grace Powell, eventually became their ally, like the other. Medical staff who reported every detail to Edward Grace saw potential in Olivia's approach. "His spine can't be fixed," Grace explained during a private conversation. "But his brain can develop new neural pathways. It won't be walking as you and I understand it, but with the right support. Even a single step would change his world." Olivia finished. They planned for an afternoon, when Edward would be occupied with an international video conference, 3 uninterrupted hours. Grace helped adjust the exoskeleton for a perfect fit, and together they practiced the motions Nathaniel would need to make. "What if I fall?" Nathaniel asked, voice barely above a whisper as they fitted the device to his legs for a trial run in his room. "Then we'll help you up," Olivia answered simply. Staying down would be... The night before their planned attempt, Olivia found Nathaniel awake, staring out his window at the garden path they had chosen. "I keep imagining it," he confessed. "That path is 50 feet long. I've measured it with my eyes thousands of times, but I've never felt it under my feet." Olivia sat beside him. "Tomorrow isn't about conquering the whole path. It's about the first step. Just one. Can you picture that instead?" Nathaniel nodded slowly. "One step, I can picture that." As dawn broke, Olivia sent a text confirming Edward's schedule and messaged Grace. Their window would open at precisely 2 o'clock. By 1:30, the specialized walking aid was discreetly positioned in the garden gazebo, hidden from view of the main house. "Ready to make history?" Olivia asked Nathaniel as she wheeled him toward the garden, her heart pounding with both anticipation and fear. His answering smile contained a determination she had never seen before. "One step," he said. "Let's make it count." The afternoon. Sun cast dappled shadows through the oak trees as Olivia and Grace helped Nathaniel into the exoskeleton. The garden was quiet except for distant birdsong and the occasional directive from Grace as they adjusted straps and settings. "Remember," Grace instructed, "the device assists but doesn't control. You need to initiate each movement. Think of it as an amplifier for your intentions." Nathaniel's hands trembled slightly as they locked the final pieces into place. The lightweight frame now encased his legs and lower torso with supports extending up to his mid-back. "How does it feel?" Olivia asked, kneeling to check the ankle joints. "Strange," he replied. "Heavy but ... connected somehow, like my legs are. Actually part of me for once." Grace positioned herself on one side while Olivia took the other. Slowly, they helped Nathaniel rise from the wheelchair. For the first time in his 19 years, he was upright without being completely supported by others or a mechanical lift. "I'm standing," he whispered, wonder and terror mingling in his voice. "I'm actually standing." "That's it," Olivia encouraged. "Feel the ground through your feet. The device is distributing your weight properly." For several minutes, they simply remained there, allowing Nathaniel to acclimate to the sensation of verticality. Sweat beaded on his forehead from concentration, but his eyes shone with determination. "I want to try a step now," he declared. Grace nodded, right foot first. "Just think about shifting your weight slightly left, then pushing forward with your right." Nathaniel's face contorted with effort. At first, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, his right foot slid forward an inch. Again, Olivia urged. "A little more intention this time." On the third attempt, his foot lifted slightly and moved forward 6 inches before settling back onto the path. It was more of a controlled slide than a step, but Nathaniel's face transformed with jubilation. "I did it. Did you see that?" Emboldened, he tried with the left foot. This time, the movement came more easily. Another small step. Then, another with the right. "What in God's name is going on here?" Edward Wilson's voice cut through their celebration like ice water. He stood at the garden entrance, his video conference clearly ended early, face contorted with shock and fury. Asterisk. Edward Olivia began. We can explain. Get him out of that contraption immediately. Edward strode forward, gesturing frantically to Grace. This is completely unauthorized treatment. You're fired, Miss Powell. Dad, wait, Nathaniel protested. You, Edward turned to Olivia, voice shaking with rage. How dare you risk my son's safety behind my back? Do you have any idea what spinal compression could do to his condition? Olivia stood her ground as Grace carefully helped Nathaniel back into his wheelchair. The only risk here is keeping him locked away from experiences he deserves to have. I've consulted the finest medical minds in the world, Edward shot back. None of them recommended. Whatever this amateur experiment is supposed to be. You only consult doctors who tell you what you want to hear. Olivia's voice rose to match his. Doctors who keep Nathaniel dependent and you in control. Edward recoiled as if slapped. You think this is about control? My son has a degenerative condition that could be catastrophically worsened by irresponsible physical stress. Dad, Nathaniel interjected, but neither adult acknowledged him. It's about fear, Olivia pressed on. Your fear, not his. You're stealing his chance at independence because you're terrified of losing him like you lost Charlotte. The mention of Nathaniel's deceased mother silenced Edward momentarily. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously quiet. You will never mention my late wife again. And you will never make medical decisions for my son. Is that clear? Perfectly, Olivia replied, her own voice steady, despite the tears gathering in her eyes. Crystal clear that you'd rather keep Nathaniel safely miserable than let him risk finding joy on his own terms? As Edward ordered the security staff to remove the exoskeleton equipment, Nathaniel watched silently from his wheelchair, the memory of those 3 precious steps already fading like a dream. Asterisk. Edward couldn't sleep. The mansion was quiet now. The day's chaos settled into an uneasy stillness. He sat in his study, bourbon untouched on the desk beside him, staring at photographs illuminated by a single lamp. Charlotte smiled back at him from their wedding day. Another photo showed her pregnant with Nathaniel, radiant, despite the concerns already emerging about their unborn child's development. The final picture, Charlotte, in the hospital, holding newborn Nathaniel, just 3 weeks before the aneurysm that took her life. What would you do? He whispered to her image. Would you think I'm protecting him or imprisoning him? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. He quickly wiped moisture from his eyes and called, Come in. It was Henderson, the night nurse. Sorry. To disturb you, sir. Nathaniel is asking for you. He's quite insistent despite the hour. Edward found his son sitting by his bedroom window, gazing out at the garden now illuminated by strategic landscape lighting. The path where he had taken his steps gleamed faintly in the darkness. You should be sleeping, Edward said gently. So should you, Nathaniel replied without turning. We're both awake because of what happened today, aren't we? Edward sighed and took the chair opposite his son. What Olivia did was dangerous, son. Your spine, I know all about my spine, Dad, Nathaniel interrupted. I've lived with it for 19 years. I've memorized every prognosis, every limitation, every warning. Then you understand why what I understand, Nathaniel continued, finally turning to face his father. What? Is that today I stood on my own feet and moved forward? Under my own power for the first time in my life. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Edward fell silent, studying his son's face, Charlotte's eyes looking back at him with an intensity he'd never noticed before. It felt like being born, Nathaniel said softly. Like I'd been underwater my whole life and finally broke the surface. To breathe, I just want to keep you safe, Edward whispered. From what, Dad? From living? From trying? From failing? Nathaniel shook his head. Mom wouldn't have wanted this for me. The mention of Charlotte, gentler than Olivia's accusation but no less pointed, made Edward wince. Your mother, ... he began, then faltered. After a moment, he tried again. Mother was the bravest person I've ever known. She took risks I couldn't understand, embraced life with both hands even when it scared me. Tell me about when she was pregnant with me, Nathaniel requested, when the doctors first discovered my condition. Edward closed his eyes, remembering. They advised termination. Said your quality of life would be severely compromised. Was ... receptive to their arguments. Practical as always. Mom wasn't. No, Edward smiled sadly. she said. This child will find his own way to move through the world, and our job is to help him discover it, not decide it for him. I thought she was being naive. And now, I wonder if I've spent 19 years betraying her vision for you. Edward's voice cracked. Protecting you was the promise I made to her as she was dying. I think I've confused protection with prevention. They sat in silence for several minutes, the admission hanging between them. Finally, Edward asked, "Did it hurt, using that device?" "No," Nathaniel replied. "It was exhausting, but not painful. Grace and Olivia were very careful." "And Olivia, ... She researched this thoroughly?" Nathaniel nodded. "For months. She consulted specialists in Japan and Switzerland, doctors who approach my condition differently. She wouldn't have risked my health, Dad." Edward stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden path. In his mind's eye, he could see Nathaniel taking those halting steps, could imagine Charlotte watching with fierce pride. "I owe her an apology," he said quietly. "Yes," Nathaniel agreed. "And perhaps something more."